Good evening, everyone. Warm greetings from Vishweshwar Institute of Systems and Management, Hyderabad. We are in the field of education for the last 2 decades. We offer various courses under different programs for both undergraduate and postgraduate students. Based on the demands of the industry as well as the new educational policy, we have introduced a couple of new courses and programs as well. For more information on what we offer, kindly check your chat box for a link where you can get to access more information on the courses and programs we offer. So thank you so much for joining with us this evening for faculty development program on the topic faculty as mentor. We have Professor Venkat Lakshman here, and he will serve as the moderator for this evening. So before I hand over the session to Professor Venkat Lakshman, I'd like to bring before you 3 points and requests for your consideration. First, please keep your microphone off so as to avoid disturbances from the background. And we may experience a slight drop in the bandwidth issues. So it would be really nice if you can keep the videos off as well. Towards the end of this program, we have time for question and answer session. So if any one of you have your questions to be asked to the speaker, kindly put it in text and make sure you're dropping it in the chat box so that the moderator can, on behalf of you, take the question forward to the speaker for to answer. In the last couple of days, we have multiple number of registrations from most of the southern parts of India, and we were able to host only 100 participants into the session today. So we have decided to collect, actually we wanted to the number of participants from the number of total registrants. So in order to do that, we will be posting the feedback form at the end of the session so as to collect your credentials again, which will help us to send the e-certificate to your mail address in the 10 working days. So kindly keep a watch on the chat box. So with this, I hand over this session to Professor Venkat Lakshman. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Samuel. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah, thank you. Dear participants, a very good evening to all of you. It is pleasant to be with you in this FDP on faculty as mentor. I'm sure you all must be keeping well during the outbreak of COVID-19. The corresponding lockdowns to avoid further spread and protect lives because of pandemic have changed the way we used to work and conduct FDPs. At the same time, we must thank Almighty for giving us an extraordinary ability to find ways and means to come out of the challenges with new inventions during such testing times. I wish we come back to our normal life with new learning at the faster pace. We know that the faculty engages in not only in teaching, research, consultation, but more importantly, mentoring the students. Let us join today an online session by our today's resource person, Professor Lekha Sister, on how to build a successful mentoring relationship. Now, I introduce our speaker to you guys. Professor Lekha Sister is a global talent strategist, consultant, and advisor. She has over 4 decades of corporate experience, and she has obtained her management degree from IIM Bangalore. She has won numerous awards. Chief among them are Indian Indira Gandhi Priyadarshini Award, Visionary Women Leader 2019 by reputed business APAC magazine based out of Singapore. Now I invite Professor Lekha Sister to take over the session. Please, madam.
Thank you so much, Professor Lakshman and Professor Samuel. Thank you so much for helping me out with coordinating this session. And a warm welcome to all the participants. It's really nice that you've made it for this session. And I hope I'll be able to add value to your careers as well as your own progress as individual faculty members. So what I'm going to be doing right now is let me share my screen with you and do let me know, Professor Samuel, if it is clear. Yes?
Yes, ma'am, it is very clear.
Okay, great. So the topic, as you know, is faculty as a mentor. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to try and understand what is this role as a mentor. I'm sure many of you are already doing mentoring. However, we'd like to understand whether there's a way to be able to enhance it and what is the need for this. And many of us, I know, who are faculty members. And by the way, besides my corporate experience, I love teaching. So over the last 4 decades, and that really makes me sound old, like a dinosaur. But over the last 4 decades, I've always taught. Okay, I mean, there's never been a term when I haven't taught in some college or the other, usually papers in either personality development or marketing or even HR, right? That's been my repertoire. And I love teaching. I'm sure all of you do. There's a passion that I've developed for it because I believe that that's the one place that we get an instant feedback, right? It's an instant performance appraisal, unlike in corporates where you only get it quarterly at best, like in the IT industry to which I belong, or it would be, you know, in most other companies, it's only an annual performance appraisal. So you don't really know how well you're doing. Whereas in the classroom, you can make out right then and there whether you're doing well or not, because it's there in the eyes of the students, it's there in the behavior of the students, it's there in their attitude towards you immediately. And I think that's the challenge that I love dealing with on a regular basis, right? So I've also been a teacher, and I understand that, you know, when you have a full load of teaching, obviously doing administrative tasks as well for the institutes that you belong to, I'm sure that there is also this additional responsibility, which you feel is an additional responsibility of having to mentor students. And that is not often very welcome, right? You often say, why do I need to do this at all? I mean, how is it going to add value to me? But it does. Believe me, it does. Because these students, when they leave the institute, they are your ambassadors. Even these days, I get assignments due to my students who, you know, maybe they have cleared my hands. So I would say about 20 years ago, 25 years ago, they've gone into different companies, they've gone across the world. I get calls from their companies to come and speak at their sessions or to be able to even do some consultancy for them. So these students whom you have helped to put on that ladder, the corporate ladder or an entrepreneurial ladder based on whatever are their interests, I think if they are really satisfied and they really remember you, they will continue to be your brand ambassador. So it definitely adds value to you, even to your career. Forget about the fact that it adds value to you as a person, because helping somebody else, it's a known fact that the minute you help somebody else, your entire health goes up, your passion goes up, your values feel absolutely beautiful, and you just feel happy because you've been helping somebody else, right? So there are multiple ways in which this helps. There's an old Chinese proverb that says, a single conversation across the table with a wise man is worth a month's study of books. And that's what we aim to do with mentoring. As a mentor, we are saying that it's not just the books, it's not just the concepts, right? There's so much more that one needs to be able to deal with. There's so much more that one needs to be able to guide our students by. There's so much more that we need to ready them for the world outside, because the world is not a very pleasant place. And you are seeing it this year being the worst, absolutely. I mean, many people are saying, let's cancel this year from our calendars. You know, I mean, I'll be happy because I'll be 1 year younger. But yes, we need to be looking at the students' need. And what is that need? It is to be able to fit the industry well. You all have been seeing that, you know, with all the surveys that have been there recently, there are very few students who really make the grade and fit into corporate life automatically. There's so much of adjustment, so much of polishing, so much of honing of the edges. You know, you need to be able to sharpen those edges sometimes to fit into that square box, or sometimes you need to be able to just round them off to be able to fit them more comfortably and less aggressively into the corporate box, right? It is a VUCA world out there, right? You know that the volatility that we have, the uncertainty. I mean, who would have guessed in January this year that the entire world, and especially in India, every single place is under a lockdown? Who would have guessed that students would need to be able to be aligned to online teaching? Who would have guessed that all of us faculty members need to be able to adapt to this kind of online teaching on a regular basis? Once in a while is okay, but to do it day after day, it has been a stress and it has been a definite learning for many of us, right? So there is this uncertainty, there is this complexity. We don't know how long this is going to last. We have absolutely no idea whether we're going to go into a blended learning model, to the future. So while we say that we need to be future ready, when the future itself is unknown, then we need to be ready for an unknown. So there is so much of ambiguity in the way in which we are dealing with today and the kind of learning that we are working with today. We don't even know how we need to prepare our students to be able to fit into companies because we don't know what tomorrow's companies are like, right? It is going to be difficult. What do we ready them for? What are the kind of questions that are going to be asked? And we know that these people are the digital natives. The way in which they study is very different from the way in which we have studied. We are preparing them for our tomorrow, which we think is there today. But remember that their today is today, and we need to be prepared for their tomorrow, which you and I don't know about. It is a very confusing state of affairs right now. We do know that when we talk of employability, employability is supposed to be a combination of capability and capability. So when we talk of capability, all right, that's all the concepts, that's all the subjects, that's the analytical ability to do a case study, to be able to understand a concept, to be able to perhaps apply the concept in a situation. And I think today we're moving more and more towards that because we know that we would be able to, the students would be able to pick up a concept from anywhere. So if we are going to be actually looking only at concepts and teaching them concepts, that's not going to be okay for them, right? Because they know that they are going to be able to get that. So where are you adding value? And it needs to be more in the application, and more than the application. It needs to be, in my opinion, it needs to be more than just problem solving. Because today's students will have to go out into their tomorrow and even recognize a problem where nobody else sees a problem. So forget about a problem solving. They also need to be able to assess the problem, to be able to put a finger on a problem, right? So that has to be the grounding that we need to give them. There is so much more that we need to do to be able to guide them and help them to be successful. Because as all of you faculty members will definitely resound with me, in their success is our success. In fact, the more our students go beyond us, the happier we would be. I often tell students I'm teaching that I am on the boards of so many companies. I would love to be able to see them on a board matching their wits with me, right? And that is what we'd all love to do. We'd love to see the students get into a place and a position where you and I can go tomorrow, or you can go tomorrow and get that placement for your next students from them. And that would be the kind of affinity that you are creating, not just for yourself and that student, but for the future students and for the good of your institution. So there's a lot that we need to do. We need to focus now on not just the capability, but the capability. So what do we mean when we talk of capability? Generally, we talk of this smart soft skills, right? And many of this is, yes, about creating this very effective executive presence, right? That means that the person looks, talks, and behaves exactly like an executive, not like a student. Unfortunately, many of us in India especially, we have students who are doing their masters in management or their business management without having any real experience of business. And therefore, what happens is that they are not really adjusting to what we know the industry to be and what the industry wants. So what do? We focus on things like writing skills. We focus on things like maybe some amount of teamwork, which we believe and know that that is very important for them when they start out. We believe in motivation because we know that motivation is not going to come from the outside. So they need to stay motivated on their own. So we teach them that. We teach them about leadership, and we say that leadership starts at the grassroots and not just at the CXO level, for instance. We teach them about business etiquette, how they need to dress, behave, etc. We do teach them about listening skills, about public speaking, about presentation skills, communication. Even when we teach them about business etiquette, it pains me sometimes when I go and visit certain institutes and I do not see the students having the right role model. So maybe the CEO of the institute or maybe the dean of the institute will be very formally dressed. But the rest of the faculty have dressed in very casual clothes. So what are we role modeling? If we cannot step up to being in that classroom or in that institute for 8 hours or 9 hours in formal clothes, how do we expect our students to be carrying that forward into their workday? And today's workday is 10 to 11 hours, no less. We have to make them prepared to be comfortable in the etiquette that is required of them in industry. So we do prepare a lot of this, right? But there's a lot more that we need to do. This is just some of the things that came to my mind when I look at the interviews, when I look at, the kind of job descriptions that we have for our students when they are going out into companies. What are companies really looking at? What makes students successful? And it is their agility, their ability to change and move with their time. It is their resilience to be able to take a knock now and again and stand up again, like a jack in the box. That's so important. To be able to have a very effective emotional quotient. It's not only about the logical mind here. They need to be able to use their right side of the brain as well, because it's all about empathy, right? That we need to be able to look at. And leaders today are made up more of soft skills than of hard skills. In fact, a leader will choose people with the hard skills, but he needs to have a command over the soft skills himself. That's how he's going to be able to motivate his team. We need to teach them about stress management. You and I know that there is a lot of stress out here. It doesn't mean that they take no stress at all, or they, remove all stress. In fact, there has to be some amount of eustress, that we call it, some amount of good stress. And only when they kind of cross over after the peak of eustress, when they go into the decline, that's when the performance really goes down, right? So we have to teach them to recognize that point of optimum stress, which is going to help them to continuously work well, but at the same time, not give in to too much of stress. And you need to teach them little 5-minute ways to be able to cope with stress. We need to teach them collaborative working. It's not about an individual on the floor. Yes, we do teach them about teamwork and working on a team project. But we also need to teach them that if you see somebody in the workplace working late, you do not leave the workplace before going and asking them if there's something you can do to help them. So it is a lot about this collaborative working, decision making. They are going to be having to make decisions now and again. And if not for the organization, definitely for what's at their plate. Like, for instance, look at the kind of companies that we have today. Even the cycle companies are wondering about whether the steel access that they were getting from China is going to stay on or not. Are we really going to have that? There is going to be a decision about, okay, look at the number of fires, the industrial accidents we've been having recently. And touch wood, if some of our students are in that kind of a situation, what is the split second decision that they need to make to save themselves and the others, right? So you need to make them really persevere. They need to be able to continuously keep on working hard. It is like that spider that you say, the spider is going to keep on making that web. And they need to continuously work at being patient. This generation of Generation Y, who are currently in our hands, and the Generation Z, who are currently in our homes, I'm sure many of you have children who are Gen Z, they are so impatient. They want ambition like yesterday. They want the achievements like yesterday. We need to teach our students to, take it easy, to wait for it, to work for it, and not believe that the minute somebody else is going to give them 1,000 rupees more or 1 lakh more in compensation, they jump. It's not about the money. It has to be about how effectively they have contributed to that company, because that is a reputation which is going to stand them in good stead in the long run. Analytical thinking, professional image building. We have to teach them how to be able to work with, let's say, things like social media. How do they build their brand? Like you all, how do you build your brand, for instance, as faculty members? So it's similar. How does a student actually work to be able to create a professional image for themselves? How do they clean up their Facebook page? I mean, we've just heard of so many people. We heard of the riots in Bangalore, and you know how the riots started because of a loose comment on Facebook, which is a terrible comment to make. We have to teach our students, not to be able to they've got to think of the results of consequences of any of their actions. So clean up that Facebook page. Make sure that it is professional looking, because that's what companies are going to look at. They don't want somebody who's going to be a liability to them. It's got to be somebody who's going to be an asset and a continuous asset. Attitude. Their positive attitude. When I interview people, especially freshers, I don't look for concepts, because concepts I know they'll be able to get it. If they don't know it today, they'll know it tomorrow, right? It's okay. And it could be just a fault with their memory. What matters to me is their attitude. How successful do they think they can be depends a lot on their positive attitude and a willingness to learn. We've got to teach them this learnability, learning to learn, to keep their antennae open all the while, and to realize that they can pick up and learn from anybody and anywhere. We have to make them ready, and we need to be able to role model that ourselves in the classroom. Anger management, conflict resolution, innovation, to be able to think of a new way to do the same thing, if not for anything else, at least for themselves, to keep the work exciting. So innovation is a big, big, big plus today. Big picture thinking. They don't only look at what is on their desk or their task. They've got to be able to look at, okay, how is what I'm doing today, how is it really going to impact the entire company? How does the entire team work with this? If I am late by an hour, who is going to be the dependencies on me? I need to recognize that and work with that, right? So the big picture thinking. They need to also look at diversity and inclusion today and be very wary of it, because not only about gender sensitization, generation sensitization is so important, because they are going to be facing a place where maybe, the boss, for instance, could be somebody probably of their generation, maybe, especially if you're looking at a startup. But the people who are, let's say, the head of IT or the head of product or the head of service or the head of sales, maybe people who are, 3 generations or 3 cohorts above them. How do they work with them? Do they understand that it's not their impatience, but they need to recognize the differentiating features between each, and what is the way to work with them productively, right? So gender sensitization, generation sensitization, physically challenged, that's especially abled people, how to work with them, for instance. POSH is one huge area. We often find that people who come from institutes, students, they think that they can be friendly with everybody, and they do not realize the thin line between friendliness and making a pass or flirting. And it can hit them very, very, very badly. We've got to teach them that here. And my point of stressing on all this, yes, we do talk of etiquette, but do we, for instance, go with them into the cafeteria and see how are they eating? Can they use cutlery properly? Do they know how to use crockery? Can they stir a cup of tea without making a sound in that cup, of the cutlery of the spoon, the silver against the china, for instance, right? We have to be able to make sure that they are going to know how to dine, how they're going to be attending a party. All that is etiquette, right? Because, it sometimes embarrasses me when I walk into the cafeteria and I see these students, they mean well, they don't know any better. We haven't done the right job. They walk into the cafeteria and they serve themselves like there's no tomorrow, So even if there are seniors around or guests around, they will first go to the dining table, to the banquet and, buffet table, serve their plates all full, come block a place or block a whole table for friends who they think will come and are not there, though there is a queue for the table. And they'll start eating very messily with their hands, and also putting, the curry patta and the red chili and whatever also on the plate, on the table in front of them, right? Not even on the side of the plate. So I think we need to make people understand that they are under the view of everybody right from day one. We need to be able to work with that. So I would encourage faculty members to sit with the students at the cafeteria and, teach them the little things. That, according to me, is really mentoring them. Another very important thing is manager management. They think that if they're nice to their boss, it's enough. It's not about being nice. It's about being productive and doing things which is going to help the manager look good, will help you rise in your career, right? So it is about diplomacy. It's not about hypocrisy at all. It is about just knowing which side your bread is buttered and how to be able to make that work for you. Networking. How do they network? Many of them do not even know how to start a conversation with the guest speaker who is entering the college. Teach them, let them go and be the ones to be able to bring that faculty member, that guest speaker from the gate or from their house. Teach them to go and sit in the car with them. What is it that they're going to speak of? How are they going to be able to keep that relationship going later? How do they enter into different blogs? How do they become people who are going to be connecting with others? How do they have these easy conversations when they're coming to serve a cup of tea to the guest who's seated in the auditorium? Can they, for instance, if the guest speaker says, why don't you come and sit down next to me and, have your cup of tea? Are they able to know what to say next? Can they hold a conversation very, very well, right? It's so important for us to make sure that our students command themselves very, very well. Above all, what's very important is their ethics and their sense of value. And I know that in many of your colleges, I know that you do stress that, but do we teach that? Do we shape that? Do we help the students understand how relevant that is for the others? And also today, look at the COVID time. We know that there are going to be tests in future, when people are entering, there are going to be health checks, and we are going to be looking at how well are people taking care of themselves. Insurance premia are going higher and higher. You do not want a liability. So are the students staying fit? If there is a student who's overweight, have you coached that student how to be able to lose weight and stay fit now, before it's too late when they get into the industry? Because then they really have no chance unless it's been made a habit of. It's not going to be easy for them to be able to change that. So there is so much. And believe me, this is not even half of the things that you need to do when you're looking at corporate grooming. And when I talk of corporate grooming, according to me, that is one of the major roles that you as faculty members need to absorb into your role definition, into your job description. We do know that you are looking at teaching the subject, which is only the student capability. Remember, we said employability is a combine of capability and capability. Now you are talking about capability in the class day after day. You're teaching them the concepts. Great. And I hope that you are also looking at the kind of examples that are coming up around us right now and teaching them to adapt those concepts into applications for their tomorrow, right? That's important. And I do know that you also have administrative tasks. Many of you are looking at placements. Some of you are looking at admissions. Some of you are looking at internship skills. Many of you are also looking at coaching your students. Yes, right? I do know that you also have research as one of your parameters. It is important for you to be able to look at that professional growth for yourself and the branding of the institute. When you're looking at the kind of research papers that you're bringing out, it's important. That's how you build your reputation as a faculty member. Consulting is another area which is also very important out here. You need to be able to consult with the industry, because the closer the links you form to industry, the easier you will understand what it is that the industry requires from your students. And when you do that, you're able to shape your students better. So definitely getting into the shoes of somebody in corporate is critical, right? Or even if you don't get an opportunity for consulting, widen your network, connect with people on, whether it's LinkedIn or another IEEE, for instance, or HMA, or all the management associations. Get to connect with people on a regular basis. Find out what's working in their mind. What is it that they feel is lacking in the students? Bring that feedback back into the institute and put an action plan to be able to help your students to gain an edge over other students, right? So part of this, besides the teaching, research, and consulting, the other part is the service bit. You need to be able to build now the student's capability. You need to be able to groom those students to fit better into industry. And for that, you have to take on the aura or the avatar of being not just a very strict faculty member. It's good to be strict, by the way. You don't need to be popular. It's very important for you to make sure that the student can approach you with a problem and know that you will take it seriously. But at the same time, the student must not be able to cross the line, right? You are not in a Miss or Mr. Popularity contest. You will continue to hold your definitive area, your definitive space in the classroom and outside. So you need to be able to walk. Like I'm sure many of you are different people at home and very different people, you know, at work. Like when I was looking at some of you who were coming online, and that's why I like to come in for a session early, because it allows me to look at people and see, you know, what they're doing at home, for instance. And when I looked at some of you, for instance, it is important, you know, and I saw some of you saying, okay, I'm on a session now, so they're trying to tell their children to keep quiet at that time. But you can see their face, and suddenly they become extremely strict. So you're anyway working a duality of roles, right? It's important for you to carry that into a triad of roles, right? So in the class, you're something else. Outside the class for the students, you're something else. At home, for your friends, for your family, you're something else, right? You need to make sure that you are able to carry this, you know, the flip of the roles so seamlessly that nobody should be able to make out, hey, what happened to him? Why is he like this right now? You know, that's not what we're talking about, right? Now, this is something that you know, so I'm just going to go very, very quickly about this. One is that, you know, the differences between teaching, training, counseling, coaching, being a sponsor or a champion, and mentoring, right? Now, I know many of us in in the way in which we do our work, we look at coaching as mentoring, right? But that's not true. There is much more to coaching, to mentoring than just coaching. So when you're teaching, that's what you're doing. For instance, you're teaching them knowledge, concepts, application. So let's talk of the subject of business analytics, for instance. Maybe you're training as well for a skill, and therefore there is a skill of, let's say, communication skills or presentation skills that you're doing, or even analytical skills when you're looking at a case discussion, right? Okay, you're teaching them some skills. But let's say that there is a problem on the floor, right? This person is not contributing to the rest of the team on a project. You need to be able to do some counseling at that time. So you're solving a problem for either an individual or a team or a group or a class or whatever. You're solving a problem, right? So there has to be that, for instance, that is a conflict resolution that you're doing, right? For a person, for instance. When you're looking at coaching, you're helping a person to grow in the company, in the class or whatever, and you're guiding them to say, you know, you haven't done too well last time. This is what you will need to do to be able to make sure that you're promoted to the next semester. Or this is what you'll need to do to be able to make sure that this is the kind of discipline you should go to, or this is the kind of specialization that you should take. Going by your personality and what I've seen of you, that's a good fit. Now that is still just coaching, right? Now let's say that you need to, you're thinking about a champion or a sponsor. Now that is a faculty member or a senior who's helping the student to take on a new role, maybe to access some resources of the institute, maybe to be able to gain an advantage to another senior faculty member who's working on a particular research paper, and this person wants to be able to assist someone on AI, for instance, right? So there is a project assignment that he wants to do, and you become a sponsor or a champion for him to be able to go out there and, you know, help that faculty member well enough in that project of AI so that the student can then go and probably project themselves at an AIMS conference, right? So that is again something which is very, very important. And then we are looking at mentoring, right? In mentoring, it is a much longer term. It's about being a role model. That's important. You need to be the person that these people can ape. They must want to come to you for advice. They must ask you about your life experiences. And you may not have been in an organization, that's fine, but your institute is as much an organization. And I'm sure you will agree that an institute also has a lot of politics and a lot of, you know, power play. It also has its own conflicts, etc. You've had experience in your career based on all that. Whatever you are going to be able to do, you need to make sure that, you know, you are going to help the student by talking to them about experiences in your life from which they are going to analogize. They are going to take away. You're not going to tell them what to take. You're going to talk to them about, you know, this happened to me when I was younger. Do you see that happening to you now? How do you think that you will cope with it? This is what I had done. If they are asking for it, Okay, that's a very important part. You're basically there to show them the mirror, right? So it is about their professional help, their personal help. Some of them are going through a conflict situation. Parents want them to get married and they don't want to get married right now. They want to get work for a while. How do you help them? You are not going to be speaking to the parents, but you're going to help them to understand their parents' point of view, understand the limitations maybe of their parents, and help them to be able to get to that solution. So very often in coaching, we do not look at families, right? We don't look at things outside. It could be a problem with a friend, or it could be that, you know, the girl is walking home late from a class and she feels that she's getting harassed on the work, on the road. You need to be there to help them. I'm not asking you to be on the road with her, but you need to be able to help her to know who she needs to reach out to be able to gain the confidence on a day-to-day level, because you are not going to be there with that person throughout, right? So therefore, you need to help them to stand on their own feet, right? So if you had seen the first picture that I had right there, it is about you. Let me go back to that picture and I'll come back here very quickly. I need you to see that picture because you may not have noticed it earlier. But the mentor is really a person who's putting his or her hands together and saying, I'm not going to do anything to you. You're there on your own. But yes, whatever your ideas are, whatever is your potential, I'm going to water it. I'm going to give it the right kind of the right kind of food, the right kind of resources to be able to help you to grow into a nice, strong tree. So that is what we mean when we are talking about, being this friend, philosopher, and guide. And that is what we mean by mentoring. Okay. So if you see what is there on top, the small little picture that I'm going to be putting on all the slide pages, for instance, it's basically about somebody who's helping you to be able to progress, right? Now, we haven't thought of this, but have you thought about the word mentoring? I see that some of you are heads of mentoring departments, but do you know how the word mentor came up? And this is from Homer's Odyssey. If you had read Homer's Odyssey, this is about the Greek king Odysseus, who went away to fight the long and very hard Trojan War. And he had a son called Telemachus, right? And he said, who's going to be looking after my son when I'm away? Because he needs to be groomed to be a king. And those days, the wars were 12 years, 14 years, 15 years, and so on. It was very difficult for him to think that nobody is going to be there with his young son. At that time, the son was really a small boy, So he asked his older friend, the friend's name was, by the way, Mentor. Okay. And he brought that friend in to be able to take care of Telemachus. This. Now, the beautiful thing is out here, the goddess Athena, who is the Greek goddess of wisdom, okay, she took on this physical form of Mentor when Mentor was away and had not yet come to Telemachus after some time. So she took on this role or this physical form of, Mentor to be able to hide from the people, the suitors of Telemachus's mother, Penelope, right? They were troubling Penelope and they were also going to trouble her because Athena was also very beautiful, as most goddesses are, right? And therefore, what she finally did was she said, okay, now let me hide. And she took on this physical form. And through that, she started getting involved with the growth and the promise of Telemachus into becoming a good king. And over time, she also helped him to help his mother shun away the suitors, because all the suitors said, anyway, Odysseus is not going to come back. So we are here, because they thought that by marrying the queen, they will be able to become the king. But he managed to ward them all off. And then due to Athena's guidance as mentor, he then went across and looked all across the seas to get back Odysseus into the kingdom. Okay. And the story is beautiful. And if you actually read Homer's Odyssey, it's beautiful. I mean, the kind of stories and the kind of advice that she gives at which point in time he, okay, because the confusion of roles. But it's really interesting to be able to see how she does not really, she does not interfere with his way of thinking. She only shapes it, right? She just shapes it very, very nicely. And I think that is the role that we need to do. We do not tell. We do not direct. All we do is to shape. they are like raw clay at this time. We just finished Ganesh Chaturthi. Many of us have, because of the COVID pandemic, we've all made the, with atta and haldi and all that. We've actually made these, the murtis at home, right? From clay or from atta. How do we make that? We are molding them, right? Because it's just raw clay, it's just powder at that time. Then you mix it, you mild it, and that's when the students are coming to us. It's some kind of unshapen clay. It's up to you to shape them into such a beautiful shape that when they finally go into industry, the rest of the industry is going to take them and is going to do the stapana for them in the institute without too much of reshaping, right? So that is what you're really looking at. So the definition of mentoring is actually quite clear. A mentor is that person who achieves a one-to-one developmental relationship with a learner, and one whom the learner identifies as having enabled personal growth to take place, not just professional growth, personal growth to take place. Somebody who you will think of, somebody who has not only helped your knowledge, not only helped you with your profession, not only helped you with your career, but more critically, with your life skills. Somebody who's helped you to be able to cope with all life's twists and turns later. Somebody who hasn't just given you that fish to eat, right? It's not just that first job, putting you in that first company. No, it's about how do they help you to go out and look for another company if you have to, whenever, right? So it is about them not needing you after a period of time because you have strengthened them beyond yourself and beyond themselves. That is a true mentor. So there are many, like I am mentor to a couple of startups, in fact, to 4 startups. And it's a very interesting field because when you're mentoring the startups, you realize that they don't know which direction to go to, and you are not going to tell them which direction you're going, they need to go to, because your perspective is very different from their perspective. But all you can tell them is help them to look at alternatives, and they have to come up with those alternatives and then see which alternatives suit them the best. You are not about to tell them what to do, right? And I believe that this particular example of being a startup mentor is probably your best experience of what you need to do with your students as well. So mentors are willing, and this is a beautiful, absolutely beautiful, I'd like you to make this your life mission. Mentors are willing to share a bit of themselves. So another person might grow closer to what he or she is capable of becoming. So maybe that person doesn't even know their capability, doesn't even know their potential. You also don't know their potential at that time. But as you keep shaping that clay, you see what is coming out of it. You see how the shine is coming out of it. And you know that they can become even better and bigger, right? And you can actually add a little bit here, make the trunk a little bit longer, add a little bit of decoration on the head. So what you're doing is you're actually, over time, you're able to discover new nuances to that person and also discover that you had a strength that you didn't know how to shape them with, right? So this is one beautiful thing, and I hope that you will take it to heart and will be able to follow it through. So when you look at the difference between a coach and a mentor, most coaches look at remedial activities, whereas a mentor looks at a very positive, long-term developmental intervention. A coach is more skill related with very specific capabilities, capability linked outcomes, for instance, that, okay, you have been at 40%, you need to go to 65% or whatever, right? So that is, it's about something like that. But for a mentor, it's more about life and livelihood. It's a big picture. It's the whole person. It's not just one small facet of it, right? You need to get involved. You need to know about that person's life. You need to know about which kind of environment is he growing up with. You need to know a lot more about his challenges, more than he can see it himself, because your experience will tell you something else, right? So you've got to be able to elicit that, and elicit it very, very gently. Normally, coaching is short term, but whereas with mentoring, it's usually long term. But yes, there would be, let's say, a set duration. Maybe you might say 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, or till you get your first promotion, I will continue to be your mentor. And obviously, you're not going to say, I'm going to be your mentor. The person has to come to you and say, will you be my mentor, right? It's usually something which is begged for, right? Like even when I'm a mentor to companies, I don't go and tell them I'll be a mentor to you. They have to come to me and say, okay, we think that, you know, you can add value. And then when that's when you agree after you know that there is a match, right? So a coach actually focuses on the how to be able to do something. Whereas a mentor looks at the inner person, right? Looks on why is this person doing this? Why should a person be motivated? What is it going to help him with? So it's a lot about the inner turmoils of the mind, which is going to result in a particular behavior, which is going to end up in a particular result. That's about mentoring. And there are lots and lots of movies, right, about mentoring. I don't even need to, you know, probably tell you about all these, but My Fair Lady is one of them. Pygmalion, for instance, about Professor Higgins and how he makes this flower girl into a lady, right? And that is about mentoring. Or To Serve with Love, Sidney Poitier in one of his best, absolutely most memorable movies. How he takes this unruly class and makes them such that when he is leaving, so it is about how do they make it. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. We are able to hear you, but I think from the second account.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we could able to hear
Samuel?
me.
Yes, ma'am. We are able to hear
Thank
you.
you,
But...
Dr. Anahita. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. So, Serve with Love is another really great thing. Or I don't know whether you've seen Star Wars, because it's not really your and my generation, but it is something like, you know, with the younger generation, the students are really fond of the entire series of Star Wars. And in Star Wars, there is this character, Yoda, which has become very powerful as a mentor, because he actually started off with, you know, just showing his skills. But then he becomes a Jedi trainer, right? And how does he really become that? That's the story. Or if you've actually seen things like The Karate Kid, for instance, right? That is again a really powerful movie about this boy who wants to learn karate, and he sees this person, and how does he really go and beg him to be able to help to train him? And first the master says no, absolutely not, but then how he takes him under his wing and he helps him a lot more than just karate. It's his life that he actually sets on track. Similarly, Robin Williams in The Dead Poets Society. These are beautiful movies. You must look at them. Or The Miracle Worker. Okay, this is about Helen Keller and how she was taught to overcome her disability such that she became a leading light for so many people who were disabled after that. Batman, the movie Batman, The Dark Knight, one of them. In fact, the entire series has this butler, Alfred. You know, he's the butler to Bruce Wayne, who is this multimillionaire, and by day and by night he turns into Batman, and he goes about setting the world right. And how he again, very, you know, his one-liners are something which is not definitive. Like if you look at the one that is right here, right? Why do we like it's a question that he's putting to someone. He's not asking somebody to be able to give the answer. Right? That's about mentors. And it's not only about Hollywood, by the way. Let's look at Bollywood. Look at the movies in Bollywood. You've seen Chak De India, I'm sure, and you've seen how a failing coach, what he does to be able to make people get into winning, and not just winning for themselves, to go beyond their individuality and then work as a team, right? That's a beautiful movie, I'm sure. Tare Zameen Par, where the entire family, the parents also, the father has actually given up on this child, thinking that this child is absolutely useless. But a teacher looks at the child in the classroom and makes him discover his inner art, right? So he is a special child, but how does he really become somebody who is, you know, somebody who is really special and better? You must have seen the movie Iqbal, and how this failed coach, absolutely a failure of a coach, right? He's a complete drunkard, and how he takes this youngster who wants to be a cricketer and then actually makes him into a person who is going to get into the team. You've seen, of course, MS Dhoni. I don't need to talk to you about that. Black, again, about very similar to Helen Keller's story, but it is again about a person who's blind, and you know how he helps her to be able to work against circumstances. Three Idiots is another beautiful movie about a peer who's a mentor. Right? It's not only the mentor having to be somebody. One of the class fellows itself becomes somebody who's a mentor. Munna Bhai. If you look at Munna Bhai, Fabulous. Yes, absolutely. Hitchki is another great movie. And I've just given you a few of these, and I'm sure you'll come up with many more, right? Des Pardes, which is the Hindi My Fair Lady, for instance, right? The first movie that I remember so strongly about mentoring, right? But there are many of them. And when you see a movie and you take away these points and you realize how that shaping has happened, amazing. Lagan is another beautiful movie. So what I want you to do right now is spend a minute to just look at your own mentors. Think back to, who took an interest in your welfare and your development at a time that you were perhaps in college, or you were just taking on a challenge, such as, for instance, starting a new job. Who was the person who really took an interest in your welfare and your development? Who has been that useful role model in your life? Who has helped you to uncover and use a hidden talent or an ability? Who has helped you to face and resolve a difficult situation in your personal and professional life? Who challenged you to acquire a new vision and take a new direction? So may I ask Swati Nigam to please let me know who has been a useful role model in your life, Swati? You can unmute yourself and speak, and then you can mute it back, please, after that. Is Swati there? Okay. Mayuri, would you tell me, please? Mayuri Ganesh.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mayuri. Who has been your role model? Somebody who has helped you to face challenges, both professionally and personally?
Ma'am, it would be my school teacher.
Okay, your school teacher. And how did that happen, Mayuri? Yeah, what happened, Mayuri?
Ma'am, during my preparation phase, when I was preparing for my medical diet that time, although I'm a dentist now, but there were many people who guided me through that phase. So one particular teacher was Mr. Venkatraman. So he's no more now, but he had a huge role to play in the way I got shaped and I actually entered this.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask Shravan, please? Shravan, would you be able to share who was your own mentor? Who do you thank even today as someone who has changed the direction of your life? Are you there, Shravan?
Hello, Lekha ma'am. This is me, Lieutenant Swati Nigam.
Yes, Lieutenant Swati.
Yes, ma'am. So I do believe that, and I admire a lot to my principal ma'am, and she's a great mentor of me. She was an ex-army person also. So I admire her a lot, and I learned that how to put your determination and dedication towards your work, and that actually I applied with myself. And there is a huge change when I just what you can say admire to her. So I really admire to my principal ma'am.
Fabulous. Thank you. Nivedita, would you like to say something? Nivedita Malik?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Just a moment. Yes. Just I want to share my experience. What you said right now, we just if we see our mentor, then I will become a good mentor. The line, what you said, the line was fabulous. Just I thought my previous days when I struggled so many things, and for the stand up in a particular area. So there was in my college life. Professor was there. He was just to change my life. What I will do next and next. But what he said, just I thought that days, and also in my university's life when I completed my management, MBA finance, and everywhere I just a moment I am the first and second rank holder from the childhood. But after BSc, and after that, I just cracked the MAT exam, and also MBA, and also MCOM, where I go for all the stages. I got the first class and the rank holder. But the thing is that there are so many struggle in the field of that particular area, because I want to be a good teacher. So whatever, school teacher or college teacher or university teacher. But right now, I appointed from the College Service Commission of the West Bengal, and I am the assistant professor. Right now, I have 6 years of the UGC experience. Right now, I am the UGC teacher. But I cannot forget that those days when I struggled so many things, but nobody helped me, like references, Though I was a good student, but nobody has the references. But that days I just found, oh, my teachers, nobody helped me on any references. But right now I think about that. Yes, whatever she or the professors was done, that was right for me. That's why today I am here, and from on my feet. That is the experience.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nivedita.
Thank you,
Now,
madam.
you realized one thing when we were just talking about mentors. Most of you have talked about teachers who have done this for you, right? How many of us can truly look back and say that, amongst all my students who passed through my hands, how many of them can really turn around and say, thanks to you, I am where I am? How many of them are going to do that, right? And I think, if you look back, like Nivedita said very correctly, if we can look back at the people who've changed our lives and we can model ourselves on them, how they have done what they have done to change the course of your life, you will be fabulous mentors yourself. And I'm sure many of you are, but we just need to recognize what is it that we're doing right and what we need to keep repeating in future to continue to do this good job. And how what we did yesterday is not the same as what we need to do today, and definitely will not be the same as what we need to do tomorrow. So in our course, in our journey of mentoring, we also need to change. We need to keep on morphing. We need to keep on adapting, because the world around us is changing, right? We could be stuck in a hole somewhere, but our students are going to come out of that hole, out of that college, into the big world. And we need to know what is outside in that world to be able to help them to get ready for it. Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing. And I'm sure if I ask each one of you, I'm sure many of you will come, with that. But the idea was to make you reflect. So thank you. Now, I'm just going to ask you some questions. And I saw Lieutenant Swati Nigam is, was in the army. So, Lieutenant Swati, I'm also an army brat because my father was a brigadier in the army. So I know what it is
great,
like to be part of the army family. So I'm very proud of you. Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank
and
you
I
so
hope
much,
you
ma'am.
all have seen this movie recently that was released called
Yes, ma'am.
Gunjan
Yes, ma'am.
Saxena. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Of course, it is making a lot of waves for some for the
Yes.
wrong reasons, because they're saying that
Exactly, ma'am.
it's probably not the real way in which people have been. But
True,
I like
true.
the story for the grit and determination of that one girl. And I know, yes, there were a lot of liberties that were taken with, showing the Air Force the way in which they've shown it. But then we know that the Air Force is a great place, otherwise there wouldn't be so many women working there, right? But then let's just look at that movie and ask yourself these questions. Do you listen to your students? Do you actually listen to them? Not only what you want to hear, but listen below the surface, not what they're saying, what they're feeling, what they're thinking. Are you able to penetrate that demeanor, that outside skin that they have, to get into their minds and hearts, right? Now, if you remember the movie, in the movie also, she tried to say, and she couldn't actually say it, right? But at the same time, she knew that she was facing a problem and she didn't know who to go to. And even her, the senior, the superior, the flight commander knew that. But he was not going to be able to take her into, squad leader was not going to be able to help her out. He wasn't going to do that for her sake, right? Do you understand their individual needs? Now, she was only one woman in that particular center out there. And there were no, toilets or even changing rooms for women, and she needed to run back to her room to be able to change, and therefore she lost a lot of sorties, a lot of these flights that were actually there, her training flights, right? Do you understand that individual need that they have, where they have not even had the guts probably, or they have not even thought of coming to speak to you about it, but have you understood that there is some problem that this person has, right? Do you encourage them to express their feelings openly? Right? I don't know whether you really have you told them, yes, tell me about it, yes, talk to me, and encourage them in a way which is not threatening at all, and they should be able to trust you with confidentiality and with the urge that you are really going to be helping them, right? So the same way here, she finally could not talk to anybody about it. Even when she went home, her father, she was not able to even tell her father about it, right? But she just knew that she was discomfited, and she just didn't know whether she wanted to leave, but then she wanted to also whether she wanted to leave her dream of flying. Do you provide them with the tangible as well as the intangible? Very important, the intangible support for their development. If you have seen that movie, you will realize that the actual wing commander who came in there later, who then said, when she said, I'm not able to take the sortie, he understands, he doesn't speak too much about it. He says, okay, you're on the sortie tomorrow, and she's wondering how, and then she sees that he's going to be her sortie commander, right? I mean, the trainer. And that is something where he's coming down from his position to help out somebody who has a problem with getting whatever they want, giving them the resources tangibly, but at the same time, the intangible support that is there, right? That is so important. Do they know what is it that is what you are expecting to be, the performance? Is it just the fact that, that they are going to be around for you? Is that what you're looking at? Or is it about the fact that there's going to be a lot more, that when you go into Kargil, for instance, you're going to be the one who can fly low enough to be able to actually spy the Pakistani camps that they are. Now, she doesn't even know that, but he has seen that, and he has been able to say, this is why I want you to get into, go to that camp and be ready out there, because we are going to war, right? I mean, it is the beauty of this movie was actually, if you can read it, go below the surface, please, and look at it again from the purpose of mentoring, right? How she discovers different people to mentor. Even her father is a mentor, but in a very obvious way, but not obvious to her mother, right? Her brother was never, who she thought was a bigger support, was never a mentor to her. But towards the end, he becomes a champion for her, right? So it's good for you to be able to see how that difference is, how she converts the squadron leader also to become her champion towards the end, because she saved his life, right? So it's a beautiful movie. Another movie which you must see and see again, I know you would have seen it, but see it again from the purpose of mentoring, is Lagan, right? Do you, for instance, encourage the open and the honest discussions and the problem solving that you need to be able to do? When he looked at, okay, I have to be able to do this for my village. I have to make sure that, there are not going to be taxes that are paid when we are not having even a crop. From where are we going to be able to pay this? How are we going to fill our stomachs? And he looks at all these people, this guy who's running around catching chicken, the other guy who's trying to do something. And he looks at how he's able to look at what they're doing, their skills, to be able to work together, right? A skill that was never on the field, but he works at it to make them part of a team, because he didn't have that team to be able to teach cricket to the cricketers, right? And the cricketers actually, the English cricket team actually looked down on this bunch of villagers, and they said, how are they going to be able to fight cricket with us? And it was like, oh, come on, we're going to win this kind of thing. But how he managed to be able to help the students to create the right action plans and the right kind of practice sessions that is going to help them to create the changes in themselves, to work with whatever is required, right? I mean, it was so important for him to be able to look below the surface and see potential where potential was not displayed earlier. Do you help them? Do you help your students to be able to explore these potential areas of growth and development? Maybe they all want to take finance because they believe that CFOs are going to be able to command the world, but maybe not so. If you look at what's happening in the COVID times today, HR is taking the forefront. HR has already got its feet on the table, because everything in the company today is being driven by HR, right? So in my opinion, you're going to see the CHRO becoming a much more powerful person today. Maybe you can actually guide your students better, because they are looking at your yesterday and they are looking at their today, but they are not able to look at their tomorrow, which you can look at with your experience, right? Potential. Look at their potential and match that for them. So there are many dimensions of mentoring, about influencing them directly or to do it, very indirectly, for instance, to either challenge them and help them to be able to take on something which is really hard, or nurture them through a problem that they're facing, So there are these four. I'm not going to spend too much of time here. I'm sure that's not the important part here. But what is it that you can do? What is the kind of mentoring help that you can do? The first, of course, the basic one, is the specific learning functions as a faculty member, right? Learning of those technical skills and the knowledge to be able to help to learn the current job, to be able to learn about organizational culture and how that is going to impact them, to learn about organizational policies and what is it that they need to be afraid of, what is it that they need to be watchful of, what is it that they're going to find which is going to encourage their productivity. Being prepared for future jobs and promotions. How do they work their career path later towards it? So this is the first learning function that you can help as a mentor. The second one is general career development functions to obtain challenging tasks. Do you, for instance, help them to look at their personality and look at what is the best kind of personality fit for roles in marketing? And you know that they're not going to go in there and be creative marketing, branding people immediately. They're going to be doing a door-to-door sales job. Do they have the perseverance to be able to go in the hot sun and do that for some period of time? HR, you know that they're not going to be doing, a very fancy HR analytics job in the beginning. They're just going to be able to go and call up people and work on the recruitment model. The finance students. Your finance students are probably not going to be going and again sitting at the CXO table and working on financial strategy and where to be able to raise finance from and so on. What they're going to be doing is just be balancing the books for some time to come. Are you able to look at their match, their personality match for the immediate job and their potential for the growth into that job tomorrow, right? So obtaining the protection that they are going to require to be able to grow into that. Obtaining sponsorship, helping them to get the right kind of recommendations. They've helped out in a particular project in the company, in your institute, for instance. They put together an event and they've gone and got some sponsors. How have they managed to get that? So getting a word from that sponsor about how this negotiation took place to get that sponsorship amount will add a lot of recommendation to this person when he's finally looking for a job in finance, right? So are we really able to put our finger on what it is that the student has been doing, which can be a capital requirement for him or a capital asset for him when he walks into the job? Obtaining endorsement for acts as well as views, for instance, it's something which is really important. Making the right kind of career move, getting the achievement showcase of this person, being able to tell people what this person has done is another good thing for a mentor to do. Clarifying the work, clarifying, career goals of this person, what is the kind of job that he's going to do, and so on, right? The third type of possible form of mentoring that you can do as a faculty is personal help. Maybe some kind of counseling that the person requires. It could be that he is having a tough time, or maybe he's actually, I don't know, he's got bipolar disorder. I hope not, but it could be that he's got a discomfiture, a psychological issue which he's trying to deal with and unable to come out with. So you might like to get him professional counseling to be able to obtain that moral support as well as encouragement, to be able to probably obtain the right role model. It may not be you, but maybe you can connect him to somebody in the finance field who you believe will be a great role model, looking at your own network, doing that, obtaining praise for him from other people, putting him in a situation where he's going to be successful, to create that, like we call, to be able to look at what it is that the person has done in the past that can be repeated into the future, right? So that is, again, something where you're obtaining that praise, putting him into a situation where he's going to be successful. Obtaining a confidant for him, somebody whom he can confide in. Maybe he can't confide to you about everything, but perhaps there is somebody in his peer network who can be trusted to be able to support him. Achieving maybe friendship between the two of you beyond just the classroom is important. Achieving trust. This is, I think, the most important. Can he trust you to do the best for him throughout his life? And the fourth one, if you look at it overall, this is the action plan. Examine all the options for the action and their consequences. Remember that the mentee must be the one to own the solution. You are not going to be owning it. If you involve the mentee into creating that solution, then he has the commitment to go ahead and do it and fulfill it himself, right? So you just guide him. You're just saying, okay, what have you thought of to be able to deal with, let's say, presentation of your resume? Have you thought of different ways? And then let him come out with different ways, and then you can just show him a couple more and ask him, do you think this might work for you? And at every time be prepared to step back in case he doesn't believe you or he doesn't think so. That's fine. It's okay. He doesn't need to take your word as law, right? That's important again. So negotiate and agree on these challenging action plans. Enhance the commitment by having a very clear agreement of mentoring. What is it that you're going to seek to help him with? And what is the target that you're going to work towards? When is it being completed? You might have a moving target, a rolling target. Like last year it was this for 3 years, but now he's achieved halfway through. Maybe we think there's a different change. So you might do a mid-course correction. You need to be able to look at those moving targets all the while. And please definitely journalize. You must monitor the progress, because finally, as a mentor, he's going to look at you to give him a recommendation tomorrow for a SOP that he's looking at somewhere. So you need to be able to give those concrete evidences of his suitability for either that further course or that job that he's looking for, or a visa, I don't know, whatever it is. But you need to be able to therefore look back at your journal and say, oh yes, I remember he did this, and I remember that he got a lot of praise because of that, and he got an award and so on, right? So look and journalize that. And please look for ways of affirming and celebrating progress. I think as a mentor, you also need to be a 1-minute manager. So pick up this book by Kenneth Blanchard and figure out, how do I give that 1-minute praise to him? How do I make him know that, okay, this is feedback that he requires, and how do I give it without something which is going to destroy his self-confidence? Right? So when you look at the mentoring, meeting and the sharing process, the mentor is the one who listens. We often do the reverse. We make sure that the mentee is listening to us, right? But it is that the mentor must listen and listen for things below the surface. The mentee must be the one to keep on informing. The questions that the mentor asks is where the mentee is clarifying not just the answer, but also his own thoughts. The mentor is only summarizing, and here to the summary, the mentee is listening to the summary. Yes, was this what happened? Is there something I'd like to add value? The mentor is going to seek the options, right? It's so important. Whereas the mentee is the one who's going to select the goals and list the options. It's so critical that the mentee has to be the one who's in the driver's seat. Please remember, it is his life. It is his career. You are only the driver, right? You will allow him to take the car wherever he wants. That is all that you're doing. You're just guiding the car. That's the only thing, right? And the mentor is going to ask for the priorities. What does he want to focus on first? What does he want to do next? And it is the mentee who needs to prioritize. So you need to remember who is really in charge. If you are going to take the responsibility, it is directive, but you don't want it to be directive, right? You'd like to create a nurturing one where you want him to be able to decide. You want him to be able to take on the potential. You want him to be able to direct himself and solve problems for himself in the future. If the mentor is going to play the role of an expert, then the mentee is going to say, oh my God, this is an expert around me. But, he shouldn't be afraid of you. He's got to feel that you also have done your mistakes. I had so I guide a lot of mentee mentors and across the world. And when I look at these pairs, there was one mentee recently who said, how can I talk to this person? Because the person has done everything right, has always had, and this person was actually setting up an enterprise of her own. And the other person, the mentor, was actually one who was already successful. And the mentee was saying, but the mentor has done everything right. And how can I tell him that this is a challenge that I'm facing? I don't know what I'm going to do for my next order that I need to get. And so I had to speak to the mentor and say, ask the mentor, have they been problems that you have faced in the past, right? So he says, yes, of course. So I said, can you talk more about your failures? Because your mentee will learn more from your failures than they will learn from your success, right? So the mentor must talk about the failures, the challenges that they have faced more, so that the mentee believes that his learning is a lot greater, right? Please don't listen to talk. We often listen, wait for a question. We're not listening really. We're only waiting for the gap in what the mentee is asking us. And we just want to share our wisdom. We want to say, oh, I have to say this. I have to say this today. But it's not about what you want to say. It is about what they require to hear. And sometimes it's okay to be absolutely silent throughout a session. So the most effective relationship where personal development is desired are those in which the mentee is relatively proactive and the mentor is relatively passive, or at best responsive or reactive, right? So I don't need to talk about this. I think we've done most of this as we have stated earlier. I'm going to get into, yeah, this is important. You need to be able to study the SWOT, to be able to match that strength and weakness to the kind of opportunities and threats of their tomorrow, not your yesterday, right? So you have to see what is changing in the world outside. What are the kind of risk factors that they're going to deal with, right? Ensure that the mentors are always held in high esteem. It's really important. Don't make decisions for them. Please hold up the mirror. They have to see themselves, right? And they must see themselves in you. That's very important. They must be able to see that, oh, he's also made mistakes. And if he's reached where he is today, then even if I make a mistake today, I don't need to get depressed about it. Today's generations, I'm finding, and I'm completely discomfited to find the number of suicide cases or the depressive cases that we have, because people are finding it difficult to cope with failure. And I think we need to help them to understand that we've all had failures, but we've reached where we are and see we're successful today, right? So hold up that mirror. It's very important. Please resist the temptation and don't increase the dependency on you, because you would have read this in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits, where he speaks about that you first start out from this position of dependency. He talks about making people independent, and then the true sign of maturity is, that the relationship has matured to the point where both of you are now dependent on each other. So as a mentor, you're also learning now from the mentee's experiences, because it can help you in your next mentoring relationship, right? So that interdependence is a true sign that your relationship has come to the cycle of maturity. So read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits. A very, very important part of that is the cycle of maturity. And even Daniel Goleman, in his Working with AI, also stresses on that. So, like most of us faculty members, we are so good with looking at the 4 P's, or like I like to say, it's not the 4 P's, it's not the 7 P's, it's not the 12 P's, but it is the 31 P's of marketing, correct? It is so important to be able to look at things in these kind of mnemonics that we create. So we say it's a 5S strategy for quality, or we talk about the 4M of management, or we talk about, so we keep having these kind of remembrances, right? I have, for instance, a very popular signature session that I love doing for people of all ages and people of all, disciplines, which is called 16 C's of success, right? So that is my signature session. Now, similarly, for this, I said that you need to look at the 3 C's. These are the characteristics of a good mentor. One is competence. You need to know what you need to know, right? But you don't need to say, I know everything. You have to have enough of a respect for the other person to say, I don't know, but I can find out. If you can find out, great, tell me about it. So having enough confidence in yourself that you know what you need to know and you can get the information. So having that respect, interpersonal skills and good judgment is your competence. You must have the confidence to share your network of maybe, contacts as well as resources. It's really important. You must have that confidence that it's okay if I'm sharing it. I have enough confidence in my mentee. He's not going to do anything negative with it. He's going to use it for his development and he's going to keep me looped in. So that's fine. Allow the protege or the mentee to develop his or her own terms of that contract. You need to be able to demonstrate and allow him to demonstrate the initiative as well as take risks, and also to share credit and to commit. Invest the time, the energy, and the effort to mentoring. Share your personal experiences. I'm not going to go into the slide. You're going to, by the way, I've seen some questions about the slides. You are getting a PDF version of the slides. It will come to you if you want it. Please connect with, with Professor Lakshman. He will send it to you if you need it. I only have one request. Please do not use this for further dissemination or training or teaching. It's for you as reference only. Okay, these are my slides and I'd like to retain control over them. Okay, so these are your tips for the mentees, most of which we have already spoken of. And the last one is the tips for the mentees. How do you work with the mentee when you're putting a program in place in your college? For instance, how do you help the mentees to get the best that they require from them, from their mentors? So, I started off with this, and I think that one of the things that we must recognize is that mentoring is a very, very, very critical part of faculty role. And in my opinion, it should be made an integral part of it, right? And for that, there must be enough recognition of the time that it requires. It must not be just an afterthought, okay, you go look after 5 more students. No, it's not about that. You need to be able to make sure that there is a match between these needs and what this mentor is reflecting, his role modeling. Can there be a learning, right? When the selection of the mentors is given, you need to be able to look at that match for the right kind of an effective relationship. So it must be made enough. You must have enough time that is built in, you must have enough rewards that are built in, and enough recognition of people who are doing a great job. If you have the right kind of R&R, which is a reward and recognition program in place, people will take this on very willingly. And it's not only just putting it into the performance appraisal as an objective, it is how do I then turn around and praise that mentor? Because in that case, the mentor is also a mentee, right? So how do I nurture that mentoring ability that the person has? So please don't allow it to be an individual afterthought. It should be something which is made time for in the work calendar. So I've already spoken about empathy. It's very important for people to be able to be empathetic and not only talk down to people, right? And like I said, allow your life experiences to be shared and your failures, and be confident enough of sharing your failures. It's okay. It's fine to know that you've fallen into the pool and not only been on the stepping stones on your life. It's okay, right? So the analogies, the right analogies are picked up by the mentee. And the one thing that I want to stress here is by having the direct subject teacher as a performance management, taking on that performance management role or the mentor role, please remember that you are actually creating an unconscious bias, right? So the student or the mentee is going to always say, okay, he also is doing my performance management and giving me an evaluation on that subject, and he's my mentor. I'm not going to be able to, absorb or share everything with him because he might take it out in my marks, right? So it's sometime you've got to be able to make sure that you wipe out that unconscious bias. So that's what I wanted to leave you with this particular statement and this beautiful image once more about it, that the mentor will act as a teacher, a sponsor, a guide, an exemplar, a counselor, moral support, but most important is to assist and facilitate the realization of the student's dream, not your dream, but the student's dream. The focus is the student and how can he shine. More power to each one of you. Thank you so much for being such a patient audience. It's been a long session. I think, when we become faculty members, it's very difficult for us to sit in a class for so long. We tend to go off to sleep, I think, but and therefore I pity our students too. But I'm glad that you all have stayed, and I hope you found this useful. I'm very happy to be able to take questions now.
Yeah, thank you very much, madam. It's a very wonderful and informative session, and moreover, it is an interactive session. Thank you very much for enlightening us regarding the faculty as mentor. And I request the audience participants, you please can raise your questions.
Sir, this is, can I?
Yeah,
Can
please,
I?
madam.
Yeah, sir, this is Manisha Bhambre from Ashoka Business School. I'm an HR faculty and from Nasik in Maharashtra. I would like to ask Lekha ma'am, like I told you, I'm the head of the mentorship department in our institute. I mean, in fact, of all the institutes of all the units that come under our institute. And I would like to say that without being modest, that I'm really a very good mentor. It comes naturally to me. And like ma'am was saying, I have had the students, my past students also. I mean, just during the COVID period, there was this boy who gave me a call in the middle of the night, and I had to speak with him for nearly an hour. He was on the verge of committing suicide, and I took him out. There was another girl who was married, and she had issues with her mother-in-law, and she said, even I can't talk to my mother, but you are the first person that came into my mind. And I had to, you know, so I think these things are so priceless, you know, the love that you get from these mentors.
And the trust, absolutely. The trust
Yes.
is so amazing. Wonderful.
Absolutely, ma'am.
Wonderful.
And I would like to ask you one question. Our management keeps asking us, how do you measure it? How do you evaluate it? Ma'am, can we do that? Is there, see, academics we can. The academics part of it we can. The career thing we can. But what about this? Because I think
20 minutes, Ranjita.
mentorship is all about trust, ma'am. I cannot expose. This fellow was a chain smoker. And then he comes and tells me that, ma'am, I've quit smoking because of you. Okay. How do I cannot expose his name? I cannot tell this to the management. What do I do?
I don't think you have to do that, but your mentee should be able to give feedback about you. You're right. You cannot have a breach of confidentiality.
Absolutely.
But any mentoring program must have the right kind of feedback mechanism in place. And you need to do that periodically. And they don't need to state the circumstances, but they definitely can rate you on 1, 2, and 3 on the kind of characteristics that are there. And this should become part of your reward and recognition program, just like any performance appraisal.
We do have a feedback mechanism, ma'am. We do have that. Okay. And but they want to know how, when we have meetings, you know, when we have formal official meetings are twice in a month and informal are every day, you know, any time. So we have a record of that. So how do you keep the record of that? It's what discussions you had or
no, it's not about discussions, but how much have you reversed? Okay. How much have you encouraged a good behavior and how much have you reversed a bad behavior or a point of desperation like the suicide case that was there, for example.
Yes.
And you don't need to name people at all, right? You can just, you just need to be able to explain, like a manager does in a feedback form, performance appraisal form. When you are going to be transparent about it, you don't actually talk about specific cases, but you're talking about the impact that you've made with your managerial or supervisory skills. So work on things which can tangibilize that and look at the right kind of, probably your college or the colleges that are under your command might have completely different skills which are required for the kind of students that are in your care. So maybe getting feedback from the students after they have left is another good possibility. We also look for alumni from companies who have left the company, and then we turn around and say, what do you think of your manager 2 years after he has left, right? So similarly, like many of you are remembering your faculty members or your teachers who are really good mentors to you, it's a good way for you to be able to see was this person really effective as a mentor.
Absolutely. Ma'am, I would like to quote an incident here. There were these 2 boys, you know, mentors. They couldn't speak. They'd come from a vernacular medium. And, you know, they used to literally shiver even while talking in the class and all. And then in the 3rd, 4th semester, he went on the stage during an annual function and he said, it is because of ma'am that I'm here. Okay. And then both of them went to the US, ma'am, and they every time give me a call and they say, ma'am, aapko kabhi bhi aya aana hai, to hum ticket bhejenge. I think I'm not going to take the ticket, ma'am, but
so sweet. Yeah, absolutely. You know, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Manisha. Congratulations.
Thank you. I was
very proud of you.
Thank you, ma'am. I was relating to every point that you were saying, you know, and
Thank
I think
you. Thank you so much.
That makes my life very easy at the institute because, as you said, it's all political, you know, this thing. So this is something that really
very special. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ma'am, can I come in here? I'm Dr. Bharat.
Yes, please, sir. Of course.
Yeah. Professor Lakshman, can I come in?
Yes, sir. You can.
Okay, I'll take 15 seconds. What Manisha was talking about measuring. So at Vishwa Vishwani Business School, ma'am, we have a concept of having a mentoring book, a logbook kind of things, which all the students are given an individual book, and all the mentoring sessions are recorded, wherein what are the suggestions. And at the end of the mentoring, the feedbacks from the students are also taken. So that could be one way through which this measurement aspects can be integrated in the entire process. That's what I just wanted to add up. Thank you.
Absolutely. Very good point, sir. Good.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any other questions from the participants, please? Either you can type in the chat box.
This is Dr. Alim here.
Yeah,
Yes,
Dr.
Dr. Alim. I know you had mentioned that you had a question to ask in the chat.
Yes, ma'am, I do, ma'am.
Please.
So can I proceed with the question, ma'am?
Please do.
Ma'am, I've got a question. I'm representing Army College of Dental Sciences, Faculty Department of Conservative Dentistry. Ma'am, a question for you for the session is, ma'am, do you consider emotional intelligence a need for the mentor to train students at every level, irrespective of where exactly it's aligned or channelized at?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Professor Alim. It is impossible to do it without the right kind of EI. Your EQ level has to be high because that is what you're looking at, right? You're looking at your empathetic level to be able to connect with that person even beyond what he says that he wants. So EI and EQ is so critical, completely.
Ma'am, when we try to channelize the students on every perspective, when it comes to making them learn the important objectives, now there are certain proportion where they are not able to express themselves out. So that proportion I find out to be emotional intelligence. So how do I make sure that they turn up to a faculty, to any kind of individual staff, and try to express what they feel is highly viable and good enough?
So I think the first thing we need to do is, obviously, if they're already in a management program, they have to first learn to communicate in the language of business, right? Which unfortunately for them is English. But they also can, for the mentoring sessions, can talk in any language that they're comfortable with, as long as the person whom they are connected to has this, what we call this, this term, which is it's called the cultural transvergence, right? That means that you actually transpose whatever is the difficulty of the person to speak in a particular language, you transpose it to the positive feature of the faculty or the mentor to be able to communicate in that language, right? So that cultural transvergence is going to be a factor that you're going to be looking at when you're matching the mentor and the mentee. So allow them to speak in their natural language, but the trust has to be built up first, and not everybody can connect directly with the students. So it's really important for you to make sure that you connect the right kind of person and encourage the right kind of behavior to generate that kind of trust and confidence in the person. That confidentiality, the just calling up a person and finding out, are you okay? I haven't seen you in class today. Is everything okay with you? Those are very, very important factors which will help you and your reputation as a mentor.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for the answer, ma'am.
You're most welcome, Alim.
Yeah. Hello, ma'am.
Ma'am, may
Yes,
I?
Mr. Venkat Lakshman, Professor Venkat Lakshman.
There is a question from participant Nagarjuna.
Yes.
That can attitude need to be integrated in mentoring process?
Completely. That was one of the points that I had stated earlier, Professor Nagarjuna. It's very important for you to look at the attitude of the person, because how do you coach that, that positive attitude that he needs to bring out in everything? And half of it is, of course, the confidence in his capability, but his ability to know that he would be able to cope with change, or that copability is also part of his confidence building and will help him to be positive with whatever comes out. And that is the one factor, like I told you, that we look for when we are hiring freshers. We look for the attitude. We look for, okay, what is it that they're going to bring to the table, which is more critical than just what you think is important for them. So attitude is definitely important.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, Manisha, if there's nobody else, can I just wait for a minute? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Anybody else with a question? And Manisha, you have my email ID. You can always connect with me, by the way.
Yes, I was going to ask you the same. And I
Absolutely. Please
can
connect
I
with
ask you
me.
one question?
Just a second. Mamta Kaushik is asking a question. Read that question out, please.
Yeah. Challenge is to make undergraduate children serious about the profession. I mean, I didn't understand actually what does it mean.
Yeah, so the undergraduate students who are in college, they look at it more as, you see what happens is if you look at our education system, the thing is that we have moved or graduated from a culture of discipline in the classroom, in school classroom, to one suddenly where there's sudden freedom. And how do we therefore allow that freedom, that enjoyment of freedom to be moved towards something which is going to be toward helping them for their career? I think you will find that this is changing because what's happening is really that students are getting jobs even after class 12 and definitely after graduation, right? They don't even need to be MBAs. In fact, in my opinion, the job market is going to flourish even more for people who are going to be straight out of school, more than because they're leaving school at later ages. And with the new academic sessions, people are going to be looking, the new education policy, people are going to be looking for jobs a lot earlier, right? And looking for a sabbatical, taking that year off, etc. So I believe that they are definitely going to be looking and getting serious about their job earlier. You just need to be able to make them realize that if they don't get serious about it, it's very difficult for them to be able to get the right kind of opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Professor Godson Samuel has sent the feedback form to all the participants. I request all the participants to fill up the feedback form to receive the e-certificates. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll take one last question if it's okay.
Yes,
I saw a question coming up here from I think from Nepal. So since he's talking from so far, can we please look at that question?
Yeah.
I think Sushant Marastani. Okay, from Kathmandu, Nepal.
Mentee seems not interested.
Yeah,
so
what is the mentee seems not
interested?
So that is half the challenge, right? I mean, what do you do, Sushant, if the student is not interested in your class? Do you allow him to be outside the class? No, right? You're going to coach him. You're going to be able to help him to get interested. So you have to find what it is that he's looking for a solution to. What is the thing that is troubling him enough or enveloping his mind so much that he's distracted enough not to want to come and be part of the mentoring session? And once you put your finger on that, it's very easy for you to be able to get him into the mentoring session. So it's again how you elicit that information. How is it that you are looking to be able to see where you can help the person? Okay, one last question. Can I choose, please?
Yes, madam.
Okay. Okay, this is where do we draw the line when the mentee gets too personal and seeks advice about some of their personal issues when he or she looks up to you as an ideal mentor for themselves? Dr. Harshvardhan, I think this is a very, very important part of mentoring. It's not coaching. Remember, you're not a coach, you're a mentor. You are to help them with anything which is a distraction away from their productivity in their professional lives. It's so important. So nothing is too personal, right? You've got to be able to deal with it, and you've got to be able to do it without being judgmental. Even if somebody comes to you and talks about LGBT and you have a very strong, your own values perhaps are very different, or not values, I would say, but your own thoughts are very different. You cannot allow the judgment to influence the way in which you're going to help him to cope with it. So it is about taking on or helping that student or that mentee to cope with anything which can become a barrier to his professional growth. It could be personal, it could be professional, it could be somebody harassing him, whatever it is. Nothing is too personal if it is going to be something which you can help him with his career. So I think I'm going to end with this, and I'm welcoming you all to connect with me offline. Please just write in the book or in the email. Please make sure that you write that it's a VVISM session on faculty as a mentor in the subject line, so I know where I've connected with you, and ask your question there. I am usually quite prompt with responding on email. I promise I'll do my best to do it before the weekend is out. Thank you so much. The reason I'm hurrying up is because I have another session that's starting at 7:30. So I'm so sorry about ending it right now, but I've loved interacting with you all, and I really hope I have added value to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, madam.
Thank you for coming.
So let us sign off this session. Thank you very much.
Madam. Thank you.
Thank you.